My name is Lena. I'm 31 years old. The porch light buzzed above my head like it was angry to still be awake. It was August in a Georgia suburb, the kind of midnight heat that didn't leave when the sun did. It clung to the siding, to the air, to the back of my knees. I stood there in jean shorts, an old t-shirt, and no shoes, with one black trash bag of clothes at my feet, while sprinklers clicked somewhere down the street and my mother yanked the screen door shut hard enough to rattle the frame. Then she looked at me through the mesh and said, flat as a receipt, "You made your choice." I can still remember the smell of cut grass and hot concrete, the way sweat made the plastic drawstring stick to my fingers, the way I stood there waiting for the lock. Because some part of me, even then, still believed this was theater. Oh, another punishment, another lesson, another one of her storms that would burn hot and then leave me cleaning up the room after. Then the deadbolt turned. A small sound. Clean. Final. I looked past the screen, into that little square of yellow hallway light, and saw my father standing there behind her. Not moving, not stepping in, not saying my name. He did not come to the door. He did not tell her to stop. He did not say, "That's enough." He just stood there and let the house close around him while I stayed outside in the dark, like something they had finally decided not to claim. I knocked once, then twice. Then I said, "Mom, I can't go anywhere. It's after midnight." Her voice came through the door, already farther away. I should have thought about that before embarrassing this family. There are moments that split your life in half so quietly you almost miss the cut. No music, no spectacle, just one sentence, one lock, one porch light buzzing over your head while you realize the people inside are serious. Before that night, I was their daughter. After that night, I was something they could remove. I was 16, too young to sign a lease, too old for anyone to call it an accident. And no, I had not done anything big enough to deserve exile. I was not pregnant. I was not on drugs. I had not been arrested. I had kissed a boy they hated, pushed back after weeks of insults, and said out loud that I was tired of being treated like a problem every time I wanted one normal teenage thing: a ride to a friend's birthday, a homecoming dance, at a sleepover without a lecture about girls who lose themselves. The final fight was about my phone, my grades, and a rumor my mother turned into a courtroom. She loved courtrooms, loved being prosecutor, witness, and judge all at once. I stood on that porch until the mosquitoes found me. Then I picked up the trash bag and started walking barefoot down the street because I had rushed outside without my shoes when she started yelling, and by the time I realized it, the door was already locked. The asphalt was still warm. Every house looked the same. Trimmed lawns, dark windows, flagpoles, basketball hoops, safe people sleeping behind safe doors. I remember thinking that whole neighborhood looked insultingly normal. My best friend Tasha lived 8 blocks away. And I walked there with my feet stinging and my throat burning and that trash bag knocking against my leg the whole way. When her mother opened the door in a robe and saw me standing there, she took one look and stepped aside. No big speech, no dramatic questions. Just, "Come inside." Then a towel, a glass of water, a blanket on the couch that smelled like cedar and detergent. "You can sleep here tonight," she said. "We'll figure out tomorrow in the morning." Tomorrow was worse, because by the time morning came, my mother had already called first. By 9 a.m., Tasha's mom had that exhausted adult look people get when they know what the right thing is, but can already feel what it might cost them. "Your mom says you ran off," she told me carefully. She says you need to come home after you calm down." She locked me out. Tasha's mom pressed her lips together. She believed me, I could see that. But belief and long-term shelter are not the same thing. She drove me back that afternoon. My backpack and the trash bag sat in the back seat beside a pillow. The sky was white with heat. My mother met us at the driveway with her arms crossed, like she was accepting a package she had not ordered, but might keep if the terms were right. She can come in, my mother said, if she agrees to the rules. What rules? No phone, no job, no friends I don't approve of, no after-school anything, straight home, straight room, straight church. I looked at my father. He stared at the hood of his truck. Then she added the part that mattered. And if you break one thing, oh, you're gone for good. She said it mildly, like she was talking about laundry detergent. Like my place in that house was something she renewed month to month. I went back in. I wish I could tell you I turned around with some grand, blazing teenage dignity and never looked back. I didn't. I was 16. I wanted a bed. I wanted to believe parents could still become parents again if you apologized enough. So I lived there another 3 months under curfew, inspections, Bible verses taped to my mirror, and my mother's habit of opening my bedroom door without knocking, as if privacy itself were rebellion. Then November came. Then another accusation. This time, it was money missing from her purse. I hadn't taken it. That didn't matter. She tore through my room anyway, dumped drawers onto the carpet, unzipped my backpack, opened makeup bags, shook out my laundry, held up my bras between two fingers like even my body was evidence. When she found nothing, she still didn't stop. Maybe you hid it outside. I didn't take your money. You always want more than this family can give. That line stayed with me for years, not because it was true, because it told me exactly how she saw me. Need itself offended her. Wanting something, asking something, hurting, hoping, being hungry for a softer life. Any need I had became proof that I was selfish. The money turned up later in her winter coat pocket. No apology, just a hard look at dinner and a reminder to be more respectful. By January, I had a part-time job at a diner 2 bus rides away because one of my teachers helped me apply in secret. Ms. Alvarez, small, sharp, to red lipstick at 8 in the morning, the kind of woman who treated teenage girls like they were worth protecting before anybody else signed off on it. You need cash, she told me. Quiet cash. Open your own account as soon as you can. I worked weekends and hid my tips in an old geometry workbook under loose papers. The diner smelled like bleach, bacon grease, burnt toast, and coffee that had been sitting too long on the burner. Men in work boots came in before sunrise, nurses after night shift, retirees who wanted over-easy eggs and local gossip, and to be called honey by girls young enough to be their granddaughters. I learned how to refill coffee before people asked, how to carry 3 plates at once, how to smile when a man snapped his fingers at me, as how to slip an extra biscuit into a napkin and eat it in the supply closet because I knew dinner at home might come with conditions. That place smelled like escape. When my mother found out, she burned through her words so fast they blurred together. Ungrateful, disobedient, sinful, defiant. If you have time for a job, you have time to leave. This time she was quicker. She threw my bag onto the lawn before sunset. My father stood in the garage pretending to look for a wrench. Christmas lights were still hanging crooked along the roofline from the month before, dead and crooked and left there too long. I remember that stupid detail so clearly. Unlit lights. Like even fake cheer had given up at our house. I did not knock the second time. Some doors teach you after 1 lock, some after 2. The rest of junior year, I floated. Tasha's couch for 4 nights. A church lady's guest room for 9. A week with a girl from the diner whose boyfriend hated me on sight because I took up square footage in his apartment. Every place had rules. Every rule came wrapped in gratitude. Don't shower too long. Don't use the good towels. Don't eat the good cereal. Don't answer the door. Don't bring drama here. Nothing ages you faster than learning how little space your body can take up in somebody else's home. I still went to school. Same fluorescent hallways. Same announcements over the intercom. Same girls with lip gloss and matching team jackets complaining about SAT tutors and strict curfews, while I kept 3 clean shirts folded in my backpack and washed underwear in bathroom sinks when I had to. I learned how to fix mascara with a wet paper towel. How to keep tampons in every pocket. how to answer, "You okay?" with something small enough to fit between bells. At lunch, I ate slowly so one meal felt longer. At work, I took leftovers no one wanted, cold fries, half a biscuit, pie slices with a fork mark in them. Pride is expensive, hunger is simpler. Spring came, and a social worker connected me with a youth program that got me a locker at the YMCA. I showered there with dollar store shampoo and wore flip-flops so I wouldn't pick up fungus off the floor. I filled out emergency housing forms with my hand shaking around the pen because every blank felt like a trap. Permanent address, legal guardian, parent contact. I started lying in ways that sounded neat enough for paperwork. By 18, I had a GED instead of a diploma because survival had taken a bite out of high school and not given it back. I cried in the DMV line, getting my first state ID without a parent because the clerk asked for one more document than I had, and for 10 full seconds I thought that was it. That the whole shaky structure would collapse right there between the number screen and the vending machine, but it didn't. That became the pattern. I thought I would break, then I didn't. I thought one more bad month would finish me, then it didn't. I thought being unwanted would become my permanent address, then it didn't. I rented my first room above a nail salon from a widow named Mrs. Ellen, who cared more about rent on time than my history. Her television was too loud. Her stairs creaked. She smelled like lavender powder and menthol cream. But she gave me a key. And she never once said, "After everything we've done for you." A key is not just metal when you've been locked out. I worked diner mornings and stocked shelves at a grocery store 3 nights a week. Frozen foods, cereal aisle, end caps with paper flags and summer sale signs and cheap charcoal towers. I learned how to smile at customers asking for aisle 12 while my feet ached and my back felt splintered. I learned that receipts are useful for tracking exactly how broke you are. Bread, eggs, generic soup, tampons, ibuprofen, gas station coffee. Repeat. At 19, I took one class at the community college, then two. I studied medical billing because it was practical and boring and employable. That mattered to me more than passion ever did back then. But people romanticize ambition when they've never had rent breathing down their neck. Boring can be beautiful when chaos raised you. I sat in classrooms with kids who still lived at home and rolled their eyes about chores and curfews, and sometimes I had to bite the inside of my cheek to stay kind. There is a kind of dignity in building a life out of tasks nobody applauds. Bills paid on time, forms filed correctly, oil changed before the engine screams, laundry folded before mildew starts. Small things, repeated things, the architecture of safety. I stopped checking my parents' Facebook after the first year. At first, I looked because pain is nosy. I watched Thanksgiving pictures, church potlucks, captions about family blessings and answered prayers. I watched my face disappear from every frame like I had died without the courtesy of a funeral. Then, one Christmas, I saw my father wearing the watch I bought him with diner tips the year before he let me stand outside in the heat, and something in me went cold in a permanent way. Not rage, colder than that. Clarity. They had not lost me in one terrible moment. They had chosen themselves over me for years and called it parenting. At 22, I got hired at a small medical office outside Atlanta doing front desk work, coding support, insurance follow-up. Phones ringing, printers jamming, patients furious about copays, doctors moving like weather through the halls. I liked the order of it. Claims, codes, corrections, problems that could be solved by patience, documentation, and being too stubborn to let confusion sit there and breed. A woman named Denise trained me. Silver in her braids, calm eyes, a voice that could quiet a waiting room in 15 seconds. Never let confusion sit on your desk, she told me. Touch it once, handle it, move it. I carried that sentence everywhere. I got my own apartment at 24. Tiny place, thin walls, brown carpet, a lease with too much fine print, a neighbor who smoked on the balcony under the no smoking sign. I stood in that empty living room with a sweating Starbucks cup in one hand and cried at the sound of nobody yelling. There was no furniture yet, just beige walls, late afternoon light, silence that belonged to me. That first night I slept on an air mattress with my purse under my arm. By morning I hated that habit. By the next month, and I had curtains, then a real bed, then matching dishes, then a thrift store bookshelf that wobbled a little but held. Safety came the way frost climbs glass, quietly, while I was busy doing other things. At 26, I got promoted to office manager. Not glamorous, not movie-worthy, but steady. Better pay, health insurance, a retirement account. The first time I saw employer match printed on a benefits sheet, I stared at it too long. Somebody planning around the idea that I might still exist years from now. That moved me more than I can explain. I started saving like fear still lived in my bloodstream. Emergency fund. Then more. Then a first-time homebuyer class at the county center on Saturdays with stale coffee, folding chairs, and a presenter who said equity like it was holy. I drove through neighborhoods, looking at modest ranch houses with cracked mailboxes, chain-link fences, and azalea bushes by the porch. I learned about inspections and interest rates and earnest money, the way some people learn scripture. Repetition, precision, no room for fantasy. When I signed for my house at 29, my hand stayed steady. That still surprises me. I thought there would be some cinematic shaking, some flood of grief, some huge moment where the old life and the new one crashed together. Instead, I felt focused. The closing office smelled like stale coffee and toner. The notary wore pearls and looked bored. The folder was thick with things that mattered more than emotion. Payment schedule, disclosure forms, HOA rules, deed paperwork. The clerk slid a document toward me. Initial here, here, and here. Judge, the deed will be recorded with the county clerk this afternoon. I did. Then she stamped a page and said, County Clerk, case number 2024-17823. Congratulations, Miss Carter. I walked outside with copies in a blue folder pressed against my chest. The air smelled like rain and traffic. My realtor hugged me by the curb. I laughed in a way that startled me a little. The house wasn't big. 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, white siding, small porch, maple tree in front. But it was mine. Every hinge, every lock, every square foot nobody could use to trap me in. I changed the deadbolt the first weekend, even though it was brand new. Not because it needed changing, because rituals matter. I painted the kitchen a pale, warm gray. I planted rosemary by the front steps. And I bought a yellow chair for my bedroom corner, even though it was impractical and a little too bright. Sometimes healing looks like choosing a chair nobody gets to mock. People think success arrives with champagne. Mine came in quieter forms. Groceries I didn't have to calculate twice. Gas in the tank before the warning light came on. A dishwasher humming after dinner. Christmas lights I hung in December and took down on time because nothing in my house would be neglected out of resentment. That first Thanksgiving, I hosted Denise and her son because she said no one should sit alone after working this hard. We ate turkey and sweet potatoes and bakery pie on folding chairs because my real dining set hadn't come yet. After dinner, I stood at the sink washing plates while laughter drifted behind me and grief hit me so fast I had to grip the edge of the counter. Not because I missed my parents, because I finally understood what home was supposed to feel like. No one should have to bleed first to earn gentleness. I heard about my parents over the years in scraps, a cousin at a gas station, a former church friend in the grocery aisle, my father's back problems, my mother leaving her part-time job, money trouble after medical debt, a refinance falling through, my younger brother moving to Texas and keeping his distance. None of it pulled me in. News is not responsibility. Then one humid Monday in June, I came home from work and found their car in my driveway. My father's old blue sedan, faded paint, front bumper held together with mismatched clips. I expected my stomach to drop. It didn't. It sharpened. Like some old animal inside me had been waiting for this exact arrangement of light and metal and nerve for years. My mother stood on my porch in a floral blouse and capris with one hand on a wheeled suitcase, like she was arriving for a long weekend. My father stood by the car with two duffel bags and a face I had never seen on him before. Smaller. Mom smiled first. Not warmly, strategically. There she is. I walked up the path, unlocked the front door, kept my body between them and the opening. "Why are you here? Can we come inside?" she asked. "This is private." "You can answer from the porch." My father looked down at the boards. My mother glanced toward the neighboring houses, like privacy had become valuable again only now that she needed it. Your father's health isn't good," she said. "We've had a hard year. We thought family should talk face to face." That word, family, always taken off the shelf when they needed something. I leaned one shoulder against the frame. The evening smelled like wet dirt from the rain that had passed an hour earlier. Maple leaves were still dripping. Somewhere down the block, a mower started up. "What do you want?" My father finally spoke. "We lost the house." He said it low, like the sentence scraped him on the way out. Foreclosure, after missed payments, hospital bills, credit cards, then a motel when church friends stopped offering couches because, as I would later learn, my mother had borrowed money from half of them and insulted the rest. My mother stepped in before he could keep going. "Just for a little while," she said. "Until we get back on our feet." "No," she blinked, offended by the speed. "Lena." "No." My father rubbed his forehead. "Please." The words sounded wrong in his mouth. My mother didn't like it either. I could see it. Pleading damaged the version of the story where they were still the rightful center of everything. "We are your parents," she said. "You were." Her face hardened. My father closed his eyes. "I need to say this plainly. I did not owe them shelter. I did not owe them mercy. I definitely did not owe them access to the house I built out of every broken thing they handed me. But I looked at their luggage. I looked at my father's shoulders. I looked at the street, the neighbors, the dusk settling over the lawns, and I understood something hard and clean. Yet compassion without boundaries is just self-harm wearing perfume. So I opened the door halfway. 3 weeks. What? You can stay 3 weeks. One of you gets the guest room. One of you gets the pull-out couch. You do not receive mail here. You do not tell people you live here. You do not move anything without asking. You do not comment on how I run my home. If either of you raises your voice, insults me, or lies to me once, you leave that day. If you need longer than 3 weeks, you ask. I can still say no." My father nodded immediately. "Thank you." My mother stared. "This is absurd. We're not strangers." "That's exactly the problem." They walked in carrying motel smell with them. Cheap soap, stale air, parking lot cigarette smoke, even though neither of them smoked. Yet I could feel my mother taking inventory before she even set down her suitcase. The rug, the photos, the baseboards, the kitchen island, the light fixtures. "This place is nice," she said, not admiration, measurement. I showed them the guest room, white quilt, small dresser, window facing the backyard. My father set his bags down carefully. My mother pinched the curtain fabric between two fingers. "Only one room?" "Yes. We're married." "Then one of you can take the couch." My father said he would before she even looked at him. Too fast. That told me more than anything they'd said on the porch. The first week was almost peaceful, almost. My father stayed quiet. He made his own coffee badly and wiped the counters after. Yeah, he watched the news at low volume and spent afternoons calling about jobs he was too old and too injured to get. My mother played the gracious guest in that oily, temporary way that made my skin crawl. She offered to fold towels, complimented the rosemary by the front steps, said twice that the house didn't feel like me, which was her way of insulting me and complimenting herself in one sentence. Then the slip started. She rearranged my spice drawer, left a ring of moisturizer on my nightstand after borrowing my bathroom without asking, criticized the groceries. You spend this much on organic berries? No wonder young people are always broke. I was chopping onions at the counter. My hand stayed steady. I'm not broke. She laughed lightly, like we were two women chatting over tea instead of enemies sharing plumbing. Well, money goes fast. You never were practical. I turned off the stove, faced her fully. Say something like that again and you can finish the sentence in a motel. My father looked up from the table. My mother gave me the expression she used when I was 12, and she wanted me to feel both ridiculous and dangerous. I'm just talking. I'm not. There is power in not explaining boundaries to people whose entire strategy is misunderstanding them on purpose. Week 2, she started saying, Our house. Our house is so close to the highway. Our living room needs more color. I told Pastor Allen our house has a lovely guest room. That one stopped me cold. You told who? Pastor Allen. He asked where we were staying. I told you not to tell people you live here. I didn't say live. I said staying, which is the thing I told you not to say. You're making this ugly. No, I'm making it precise. She hated precision. Precision leaves less room for future lying. That night I changed the Wi-Fi password because I heard her in the backyard telling someone I had finally come around. Come around to what? Being useful? Being harvestable? The next morning she stood in the kitchen holding her phone. The internet isn't working. It works. Then what's the password? I'll type it in when needed. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. You don't trust your own mother? Correct. My father hid a smile in his mug. She saw it. The air in the house changed after that. Something old and rotten between them started showing through. The pattern I never fully understood as a kid finally had edges. At my mother controlled by force. My father controlled by retreat. One steamrolled. The other disappeared until the damage could be blamed on the louder one alone. A partnership built out of cowardice and appetite. By the third week, I found my mail stacked on the kitchen counter in a different order. Opened. My mortgage statement face up. I went very still. My mother was doing a crossword like nothing had happened. Did you open my mail? It was already loose. You opened my mail. I was trying to help you organize. Get your things. My father looked up from the couch. Lena. No, we're done. My mother let out a sharp, disgusted breath. Over an envelope? I looked at her. Over 20 years. She shoved the crossword aside. You are so dramatic. We are in need and you're acting like a landlord. I laughed once. Yeah, not because it was funny, because the accuracy had arrived from the wrong mouth. A landlord would have less reason than I do. My father asked me to give them one more night. I should have said no. Instead, I said noon tomorrow, because old reflexes die hard, and some buried part of me wanted the confrontation in daylight, with shoes on, after sleep. I did not sleep much. At 6:30 the next morning, I found my father on the back porch with my blue chipped mug in both hands, watching the yard lighten. Dew on the grass, birds making too much noise. That soft hour before the heat takes over. Your rosemary's doing well, he said. That's not why you're out here. He nodded. No. He looked older outside, under honest light. not just age. Where? The look of a man whose silence had finally started collecting interest. I should have stopped her. It landed quietly. No grand swelling soundtrack, no healing in the air. Just a man saying the obvious 15 years late. You should have stopped yourself too. His jaw tightened, then eased. Fair. We sat in that. A plane crossed high overhead. My neighbor's dog barked once and gave up. Normal life kept moving. He stared into the yard. You think I don't know what I did? I think you preferred not to know for a long time. He nodded again. I could feel him wanting me to soften because he had finally stepped close to the truth. But coming near the door of honesty is not the same as walking through it. Your mother said if I took your side, we'd lose the whole family. So you traded me for the illusion of one. He shut his eyes. I have his eyes. That used to bother me. Us, it didn't anymore. I told myself you were strong, he said, that you'd manage. That wasn't faith in me. That was permission for yourself. His head dipped. You're right. I didn't thank him. Accountability is not a favor. At work that day, the screen kept blurring. Insurance claims, procedure codes. A patient yelled about a denied MRI, and for one ugly second I almost envied him. His problem had a form number, an appeals process, a timeline. Mine had my mother in my guest room, refolding blouses like she still held rank in a life she never built. Denise pulled me into her office at lunch. You look like you're holding a car up with your back, she said. I gave her the short version. Her face barely changed, which is one of the reasons I loved her. She never made my pain perform for her. Yeah, you already know what they're doing. Trying to settle in. No, she said. Trying to edit reality from the inside. I stared at her. She leaned back in her chair. People like that think proximity is power. They think if they can get in your house, they can get back in your head, get them out before your nervous system starts calling this normal again. Some people give you advice. Some hand you a flashlight. When I got home, my mother was in the living room on speakerphone. Well, Lena insists on having things her way. It's a beautiful house, though, very spacious. She saw me and straightened. I'll call you back. No, I said, stay on. She frowned. Excuse me? Who was that? A friend. Name. Don't interrogate me. I walked to the coffee table and picked up the legal pad beside her. Numbers, names. Our churches, friends. One line circled twice. Ask about transfer. And beneath it, in her curling handwriting, Lena House / possible longer stay if handled right. I looked up. She stood. Give me that. Handled right? You're twisting things. Am I? We're trying to make a plan. A plan to what? Stay? Get mail here? Tell people this is your address? Root yourselves into my life because you think if you sit still long enough, I'll call it duty? You owe us some patience. I owe you nothing. She stepped closer, and her voice changed into the old voice. The one that used to send panic through my body before the words even finished leaving her mouth. I fed you. I clothed you. I put a roof over your head for 16 years, and then removed it. Because you were impossible, defiant, always making us look bad. But you think parenting is easy? You think money grew on trees? Your father worked himself sick and you were sneaking around with boys and lying. I was a child. You were a problem. Everything inside me went still. Not around me. Inside me. No more static. No more confusion. No more secret hope that maybe time had softened her into someone who might one day look at what happened and name it honestly. She meant it. Maybe she had always meant it. Some mothers love their children only while those children remain useful, obedient, decorative, and mute. The minute the child becomes separate, the love curdles so fast it reveals what it was made of all along. My father said her name once, softly. A warning. She ignored him. You act like we threw you to wolves, she said. You had couches, you had jobs. You survived. There it was. The favorite defense of every cruel person who mistakes your survival for proof they didn't do that much damage. Since you didn't die, it couldn't have been that bad. I set the legal pad down carefully. Do you know what I remember most? She crossed her arms, almost triumphant. I'm sure we're about to hear. The smell of wet towels in a room above a nail salon, because I was washing my clothes in a bucket at midnight. Standing in a DMV line praying I had enough documents to prove I existed. Eating cold fries off abandoned diner plates because hunger was cheaper than shame. Reading my first lease at 19 with nobody to co-sign and nobody to call if I got it wrong. Seeing Christmas lights on your house from a bus window while I was headed to a grocery shift. She blinked. Once. I didn't stop. So I remember every adult who looked at me and saw inconvenience. I remember knowing I couldn't afford to get sick because no one would catch me if I fell. I remember buying a set of matching dishes and crying in a parking lot because it was the first time ordinary stability felt like luxury. My father sat down slowly in the armchair. My mother stayed standing because she still believed height was power. You did not teach me strength, I said. You forced adaptation and called it character. There's a difference. That line hung there, simple enough to survive memory, sharp enough to cut. My father put a hand over his mouth. My mother laughed, but it sounded strained now. You've rehearsed this for 15 years. So this is revenge? No, I said. Revenge would have been letting you think I forgave you. Her face changed then, not into regret, into irritation, because the script she came with was failing. She had arrived assuming guilt would do half her work. She believed motherhood was a master key. She mistook access for surrender. My father spoke without looking at either of us. Marlene, stop. It was the first time I'd heard spine in his voice, where she was concerned. The room did not transform. She did not suddenly understand. But he said it. And I could see the cost of that one sentence in his shoulders. Don't start with me, she snapped. He looked up. No, you don't get to do this here. She stared at him like betrayal was only ever real when it happened to her. Then he turned to me. I'm sorry. Not elegant, not enough, but unhidden. It's my mother scoffed. Of course, now you're sorry. When there's nowhere left to go. He looked at her. I was sorry long before that, he said. I was just weak. That landed harder than the apology. Because it named the mechanism, not discipline, not confusion, not tough love. Weakness dressed in parental language. She grabbed the legal pad and crumpled it in her fist. Fine. You want honesty? Here. We did what we had to do. She was poisoning this family. Always dissatisfied, always making us the villains. Some children don't know how much they cost. I walked to the hall closet, took out the envelope where I kept emergency cash, counted out $500 and set it on the entry table. Both of them stared at it. That is enough for several nights in a motel and food if you budget it, I said. I'm being more generous to you at 31 than you were to me at 16. You can't just throw us out. Watch me. My father stood. Lena, let me take her. I'll find someplace. You have until 7. My mother's voice climbed, sharp and holy and furious. This is your mother's home too, in the eyes of God. God can file for joint ownership if he wants. Even she had nothing for that. So she did what she always did when force stopped working. She cried, loudly, wet voice, indignant breathing. A performance built to make the room move toward her. 15-year-old me would have folded at the sight of it. 31-year-old me noticed details. No tears touching the lower lashes. One eye still checking my face for effect. Steady breathing between sobs so the speech could continue. Best after all our sacrifices, she said. Name one that didn't benefit you. She stared at me. I waited. Nothing. because people like her love the language of sacrifice far more than the act. My father packed first. Quick, embarrassed motions, duffel bag zipped, pill bottles gathered, charger wrapped too tight around his fingers. He looked around the guest room once before leaving it, and I could see him measuring the life he would never be invited into again if he chose wrong now. He came back down the hall with his bag. "I can go," he said. "Let her stay one more night." "No." "You'd leave me in a motel?" my mother asked. "You left me on a porch." My father flinched. My mother looked away, closest she got to shame all day. At 6:40, she tried one last angle. "If people hear about this, it won't reflect well on you." The old weapon, reputation, community, appearances, she still thought it was sharp. I smiled, just a little. People who matter already know enough. That wasn't entirely a bluff. Years earlier, after I bought the house, I had reconnected with Aunt Cheryl on my father's side. Quiet woman, steady eyes, never dramatic. She had confirmed what I had long suspected. The family knew more than they admitted. Church people, too. My mother had told too many versions of the story over too many years. Burdened mother, difficult daughter, tough love, necessary separation. Stories rot when repeated that often. Contradictions show. Witnesses remember details she forgot to smooth out. Aunt Cheryl once told me, "A lie can wear pearls. It still limps if you watch long enough." At 6:55, I opened the front door. The evening sun slanted across the driveway. Cicadas screamed from the trees. My parents stood in my foyer with their luggage, reduced at last to actual size. Not mythic, not all-powerful, just two aging people. Flawed, tired, late. My father paused at the threshold. "I know I have no right to ask," he said, "but if I call in a few days—" "Text first!" My mother laughed bitterly. "Of course. We need permission now." "Yes." She dragged her suitcase across my hardwood floor and left a black mark near the rug. For half a second I almost stopped her and made her clean it. Then I decided keeping the moment moving mattered more than the floor. Some messes are worth scrubbing later. On the porch, she turned back toward me. "One day you'll understand what it means to be a mother." I held her gaze. "If I ever become one, my child will never have to." That one landed. You could see it. They drove away before dark, my father at the wheel, my mother rigid in the passenger seat. The sedan turned left at the stop sign and disappeared past the mailbox cluster at the corner. No final cinematic glance, no thunder, just taillights shrinking through the same neighborhood where years earlier I had walked barefoot with a trash bag and nowhere to go. I closed the door gently. Then I locked it. Then I stood there with my palm flat against the wood and breathed. Not because I was uncertain, because final choices deserve witness, even if the only witness is your own body finally unclenching. The next week, the house felt bigger, also bruised. Their presence lingered in stupid, irritating ways. A medicine cap under the couch, at my mother's floral soap smell in the guest bathroom, a container of off-brand yogurt in the fridge nobody was left to claim. I stripped the bed, washed everything twice, opened every window despite the heat. Fresh air matters after manipulation. So does bleach. 3 days later, my father texted, "Motel on Cobb Parkway. Found temporary work at a friend's shop. Your mother is with Cheryl for now. I know I don't deserve anything, but thank you for not leaving us in the car. I am sorry." I stared at the screen a long time. Then I typed back. I meant what I said. Text first. No surprises. He replied with one word. "Okay." My mother didn't text. She called once from a blocked number and left a voicemail made of clipped breathing and wounded righteousness. She said family should not treat family like tenants. She said bitterness hardens a woman's face. She said I was rewriting history to make myself heroic. I saved the voicemail. Not for revenge, for accuracy. Proof matters when gaslighting tries to come back dressed as memory. A month later, Aunt Cheryl invited me to a 4th of July barbecue. I almost said no. Family gatherings still felt like places where the floor might open under me. But Cheryl had earned trust the slow way. No pressure, no speeches, no guilt dressed as concern. So I went. Kids ran through sprinklers in red, white, and blue swimsuits. Men argued over burgers at the grill. Country music blared from a speaker a little too loud. The air smelled like charcoal, lighter fluid, bug spray, and watermelon. An ordinary American summer afternoon, plastic plates, patriotic napkins, too much sun. And I stood by the cooler with a soda in my hand and felt every age I had ever been all at once. My mother was there. Of course she was. White capris, navy blouse, positioned in a lawn chair like a fallen queen making a controlled public appearance. My father stood by the grill with Cheryl's husband, moving slower than I remembered. When he saw me, he gave one small nod. Not claiming me, not summoning me, just acknowledging. My mother did not nod. She waited. That was always her method. Make the other person cross the room, then pretend their movement proved the hierarchy still held. I didn't cross it. I talked to cousins, complimented Cheryl's potato salad, carried out watermelon, answered questions about the house by talking about the maple tree. My mother watched from across the yard, like she expected the universe to eventually correct my behavior on her behalf. It never did. Near sunset, while fireworks started cracking in the distance from another subdivision, she finally came over to where I stood by the fence. "You've turned everyone against me." "No," I said. "Your choices have had a long career." She folded her arms. "Cheryl says I should apologize. Is that what you want? A performance in front of relatives?" "I don't want anything from you." She looked honestly startled. Need had always been her leash. "Everyone wants something. Not from you." That may have been the cruelest thing I ever said to her. It was also the cleanest. Her mouth tightened. "Your father keeps pretending there's still a bridge. That's his hobby. He's staying with your aunt now. Acting grateful? Acting changed. Maybe hunger teaches faster at 60 than it did at 16. Her eyes flashed. "You enjoy this." I looked past her toward the yard, toward children waving sparklers while adults half watched and smoke drifted through the evening. "No," I said. "I enjoy peace. There's a difference." A thought settled in me then, quiet and permanent. Some people call your boundaries cruelty because they remember the version of you that let them feed without chewing. She went back to her chair after that, not dramatically, just with the stiff, angry walk of someone whose old tools were no longer opening doors. A few minutes later, my father came over holding a paper plate with half a burger he didn't seem to want. "I heard some of that," he said. "Oh, then you know I wasn't rude enough." A faint smile touched his mouth. "Maybe." He looked older in the firework light, softer too. Not redeemed. I don't trust stories that hurry redemption just because an old man finally looks tired. "I rented a room," he said, "starting next week." "Good." He stared at the paper plate. "I sold the watch." For a second, I didn't understand. Then I did. The one I bought him with diner tips. The one he wore long after earning the right to. I felt the sting of it, then the letting go of it almost right after. It was an object, a sentimental one, but objects don't become holy just because they survived the wrong people. "Needed the cash," he said, "but I should tell you, I kept it too long for the wrong reasons." "What reasons?" He took a breath. It reminded me you loved me when I hadn't earned it." That was close to honesty. Not polished, not complete, but close. I watched a flare of fireworks bloom behind the trees. "I don't anymore in the same way." He nodded like he had expected that exact answer. "I know. Sometimes the most adult thing you can offer another person is not forgiveness, just accurate information." Over the next 6 months, he texted once in a while. Short updates. Work at the repair shop, physical therapy appointments. A question about Rosemary, because his rented room got good sun and he wanted to keep something alive in a pot by the window. I answered with practical instructions and nothing else. Light water, good drainage, don't let the roots sit soaked. He never showed up unannounced again. My mother moved between relatives, church friends, and one low-rent extended-stay motel outside Marietta. Cheryl told me she stayed furious, which did not surprise me. Some people experience consequences as persecution. She told anyone who would listen that I had become cold, prideful, selfish, contaminated by success. It didn't stick the way she hoped. By then I had years of consistency on my side. Job, house, quiet life, bills paid, holiday cards sent, the long, boring credibility of stability. You'd be amazed how often that beats performance in the end. In December, my father texted to ask if he could bring a small Christmas gift and leave it on the porch. Text first, I'd said. He did. I said yes. He came at noon on a Saturday with a rosemary plant in a red foil sleeve from the grocery store and a bird feeder still in the hardware store box. At winter light flattened everything. Across the street, somebody had candy cane decorations stabbed into their lawn. He stayed on the porch. I stayed in the doorway. For the backyard, he said. Thank you. He nodded toward the house. Looks nice. I waited. He swallowed. I know I lost the right to say that. Yes. He exhaled. The truth hurt him less now when spoken plainly. I could see that. I signed separation papers last week. I blinked. From Mom? He nodded. Should have done it years ago, not for me, for what it would have stopped. There it was again, late, real, insufficient, human. Maybe, I said. He looked down at the porch boards. I'm not asking you to make me feel better. Good. I just wanted you to hear it from me before anyone else said it different. That more than any trembling apology, that made me believe something in him had actually shifted. Not because he was sad. Sadness is easy, because he was finally trying not to manipulate the frame. I kept one hand on the door. I appreciate that. He nodded and stepped back. Merry Christmas, Lena. Merry Christmas. I watched him walk to his truck. Slow, careful, older than he should have looked. I did not invite him in. That part mattered. Boundaries that vanish the second you feel soft were never boundaries. They were weather. That Christmas, I hung white lights on my porch and put the bird feeder near the back fence. Cardinals found it first. Then finches. Then one fat squirrel with no respect for anyone's intentions. I made cinnamon rolls and burned the first batch slightly and laughed instead of crying. Progress is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is just not punishing yourself for small mistakes. By spring, I turned the guest room into an office. The bed went to a shelter. In its place, I put a desk under the window, shelves for binders, a soft lamp, and a framed print with a sentence I had written for myself months earlier on a sticky note, and then kept because it refused to stop being true. What they withheld became the material I built with. That may be the truest sentence I own. People expect revenge stories to end with public collapse. A screaming confession. A courtroom. A viral humiliation. Mine didn't. There was no judge, no jury, no dramatic inheritance twist. Just a house. A key. A door I now controlled. That was the deepest reversal. They had believed throwing me out would prove I could not survive without them. Years later, they stood in the home my survival paid for asking to stay. They came hoping need would restore authority. They found terms instead. They came expecting the old daughter. They met the woman built in her absence. My mother never gave me the full sentence, children are trained to crave. I was wrong. I hurt you. You didn't deserve it. For a long time, I thought closure required those words. It doesn't. Closure is not an award handed to you by the person who harmed you. It is a lock you install yourself. I learned something else too. Not every open door is kindness. Sometimes it is delayed fear. Sometimes it is old training. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to invite pain back in just because it learned to say please. Last month, and Cheryl called to tell me my mother had moved to Florida with a cousin and was already telling a new version of her life to a new audience. In that version, I'm distant. Successful, yes, but distant. Cold, hard to understand. Maybe that's the story she needs. It no longer belongs to me. My father still texts on holidays. Thanksgiving, Christmas, my birthday. Always brief, always respectful. Once, after a bad storm, he texted to ask if the maple tree was okay. I looked out the window at the branches holding steady in the rain and wrote back, "Still standing." After I sent it, I realized I wasn't talking only about the tree. There are wounds that make people loud. Mine made me precise. There are people who think love grants them permanent access. It doesn't. And there are nights that begin on a porch with one trash bag at your feet and the sound of a deadbolt turning, and years later end with your hand resting on your own lock, your own deed in a drawer, your own peace humming quietly through rooms no one can take from you. I did not win because they suffered. I won because their cruelty did not become my character. I opened the door because I am not cruel. I closed it on my terms because I finally learned I am not theirs anymore.